get all these questions going and do everything he wants to talk about.
Sounds good.
So, let me get everything shared. Just go ahead and share everything you see on your side. Just go ahead and share everything you see on your side. Okay, groups. Take a couple minutes. Hold on. There's got to be a better way to do this.
What's going on now?
Nothing. Just trying to share everything real quick.
Well,
Try to get some people on here. Let's get that going. All right. Come on, come on, come on. All right. All right. Let's do our intro video. Do our intro real quick and we'll get Ken back on.
all right.
All right. Here we go.
Live with Josh Jones.
I love that video, dude. All
All
right. We
right.
are back. We have a special guest. Give us a couple minutes. We'll get right to him. Welcome to Let's Go Crawl podcast. We're gonna do a couple recaps. Obviously, Josh, give us a quick rundown what's going on this year.
Right now, just getting a plan together for a new chassis. Got some pricing the other day, so just trying to get our finances together, and hopefully, by the end of summer break here in Florida, we'll be back on a racetrack.
I understand, brother. Remember, it took me a while to get this late model going.
Oh yeah.
Um, we've been racing pretty hard since the beginning of the year. We Volusia, I'll take Volusia, I'll take. Got to get better at places we really don't run. There's bigger money races at Alltech, so we're trying to figure that track out. I think we actually found something last night. Um, we've always felt like we're ice skating over the racetrack. Well, with 5 laps to go, we were busting out the fastest lap of the whole race.
Heck yeah.
So I think we kind of figured some things out. Shout out to all my people that helped me. But that's all I really got, man. Let's get into our guest, really, because it's going to be a good one.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Uh,
Wait on him.
there he is.
We got you, Ken.
Yeah, there you go, guys.
Alrighty, how you doing, man? Glad to have you on the show.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. For you guys don't know, man, you know this guy. This is King Kenny. He's got one of the best sand pits in the South, I've heard.
There you go.
So couple questions, man. You can actually introduce yourself, life, what got you into racing, then we'll run down some basic questions about racetracks, how to run a racetrack, how's it involve your life, and everything like that.
Sure. I'm ready to
Go ahead,
go.
go ahead, Josh.
All right. So first question is how long have you owned the Hendry County Motorsports Park?
I've had the track since the early 2000s, 2006, 2007, right in that time frame. It kind of wrapped right into the United Dirt Late Model Challenge series when I had the series. It evolved into taking over the racetrack at the same time frame.
All right, awesome. So how exactly did it come about for you to own the racetrack?
Um, I've had two things ever since I got out of high school that I was involved with. One was softball or baseball, sports, and the other one was racing. I've been in racing my whole life, either as a racer or, a fan or, just everything. And I started going to East Bay, to be honest with you. And we were taking a limited late model up there with Tommy Kelly. And I got really interested in it. And I heard they were going to open the racetrack near my house that had been there when I was a kid. And I started going there. And from going to both places, I kind of thought I could bring some guys together, to be honest. And I put on some races. So I sponsored some races at the track. And that's when the most people would come to that racetrack. So the guy that owned it was new to racing. And he said, Ken, you're able to get a lot more people here and get more things going than I can with the community because I'm not from here. And he offered me the racetrack in a lease, and then eventually I went on to buy it.
Nice. So we know that the racetrack's not the only thing you have going on. We know you own a pretty big business yourself. So how do you balance all that between the racetrack and your other businesses you got going?
To be honest, it's tough sometimes. Racing is a passion, and I've been in the mobile home business for years since, same thing. I went to college, played baseball 1 year, got hurt, came home, got in the mobile home business working for a friend of mine's dad. And, a few years later, I ended up owning a mobile home dealership. I've done it ever since. So between juggling the two and family, because I've got a son right now playing baseball. My daughter just graduated high school a couple years ago. And, you know, um, it's a lot to juggle, man. Sometimes you got to say a prayer to juggle it all.
Sounds like you just never sleep then.
I'll tell you the truth. I took a nap a little bit ago over there watching NASCAR. And that's, which you hear all the time, people doing that. But you're right. I don't sleep a whole lot.
All right. So what goes on behind the scenes that maybe people don't understand about owning the racetrack? Something that you'd like to get out there? Like, we know people always complain about, rain out calls and whatnot, but could you give us an idea of what really goes into all those decisions and how hard it is to try to make everybody happy?
Yes. I mean, there's two questions there. I mean, behind the scenes, you pretty much do everything. Anything that breaks down, goes wrong. You deal with a lot of groups, whether you're dealing with the health department, vendors, the county. There's a lot more that goes into it for a lot of owners, and especially in certain areas, if they're right near a community. When East Bay was there, the decimal, they were always dealing with the sound ordinances and things like that. And different areas have different challenges. Our challenges obviously is water in that area, because we live right off the big lake and the network of canals. So we're dealing with a lot of stuff behind the scenes and with that. And the rainouts, we kind of here's our policy. I mean, and John Wilson's pretty old school. If there's guys already in the pits and they're there to race, we normally won't call it till it rains, if they're in the pits. And I kind of got that from him. But if the people are not there and we know it's going to go bad, we'll try to call it before they get there. We'll try to call it as early as possible, not to ruin people's weekend. But, honestly, you're going to please some one way you do it, and you're going to please others another way you do it. So you try to make the best call you can based on what you see. And, like I said, though, we generally, if people are already in the pits, we kind of roll with it. And if they're not there and we know it's bad, we'll call it. And most times, to be honest, I think we've made the right call. I think there's been one time since I've owned the racetrack where I walked outside and it was sunshine when we called it early. And every other time, I think we've made the right call.
Oh, no, definitely this last weekend, there was a lot of rain in the area before we got down there. So I do appreciate you calling it early and allowing us to get home at a decent hour. So I do thank you for that. So is there anything that goes on behind the scenes that you think maybe people don't understand that would help them better appreciate you as an owner?
I feel blessed. I think the racing world has been kind to me over the years. I think the majority of the people have treated me good. I think there's haters in every sport. I don't care what it is. But predominantly, me as an owner, I feel like people have been very, very fair to me. As far as what goes on behind the scenes, I mentioned a little bit, local agencies that you're dealing with, county agencies, other racetracks, people that call you for different things. There's a lot to it for sure. But like I said, me as a whole, I think the majority of the time I get treated pretty good, and I try back to the juggling businesses and stuff. If I'm in a bad mood, based on another business or something else that's going on, I try to avoid those questions at that time because I want to react positively toward the racer or the fan or crew member or whoever it might be. So again, I think people have been fair to me as a whole, but behind the scene, I would say local agencies and other sanctioning bodies, organizations, that's probably your biggest challenge outside of weather and things that you can't help.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So a big question that everybody's got their ideas, but what is the track made of?
You mean the material there?
Correct. Yep, the racing surface itself.
I'll tell you, when I got it, it was baseball clay. And I put it this way, you can run on baseball clay, but you can't race on baseball clay. And that's what it was. I mean, and a lot of people don't remember what that stuff was like back in the early 2000s. And it was absolute baseball clay. And, which was honestly an upgrade of what it was years ago when I was a kid. It was a shell rock racetrack. I mean, literally, you take shell rock, lay it down, throw water on it, and that's what they used to race on back in the 80s was shell rock there. And so they graduated from shell rock to baseball clay. And then, I started talking to excavators and people in the area. And the original clay that I put on there, I thought I ruined the racetrack. I went next door and there was a man that was mining all kinds of stuff. And he said, I think I've got some clay here. And the stuff felt kind of good when you dug it up. But when you laid it down, it was like powder. And I said, oh my God, I ruined the racetrack. And since then, we've chased stuff. We'd actually had guys down here from other tracks talking to us. And then one day, Kenny Schrader came in, and Kenny Schrader says, man, you got to have river dredge. I said, where in the world am I going to get river dredge in Florida? You know what I mean? We're going to go dredge a river to the lake, or what am I going to do? And lo and behold, I came back to LaBelle, where I live 30 miles away. And I remember seeing hills around the river that have been here years and years and years, probably since the 1950s when the area would flood. And we started buying river dredge off the river, believe it or not. And then they closed our or our area down, and they built a big housing development. One of the big, I think it was LGI, built a big housing neighborhood. So we ran out of that. There was plenty there, but we'll never be able to get to it again. So then we got with CMEX and bought the last 30 or 40 loads. But what people don't realize, it's easy it's like even when they talk about East Bay buying the clay or buying clay for up north, we put hundreds and hundreds of loads on it each time, not 30 or 40 or 50 like you're talking about. We're talking hundreds of loads. And even the freight doubled from LaBelle to Clewiston to going to Naples. And, to put hundreds again literally would take hundreds of thousands of dollars, to be honest. And to go to buy it from out of state, they've come up with all kinds of ideas, but it cost you $1 million. And I don't think at my age I could ever begin to do that to my family or recoup it. I don't think there's enough years left to even fathom doing that for me. The last clay we had was really good, but back to what I told you before about the baseball clay and then next door and the river dredge. I think the last stuff we bought made it 100% better. When everybody said, hey, this is way better than we remember it. But I think what happens is the old material starts to show up when we get a weekend like we did in Swamp Cabbage, where we've got hundreds of race cars. I don't think we've got enough of the new clay in there, to make it perfect. So, the next time we buy it from them, I think you'll see the track get better. And that's pretty much the history of that racetrack all the way back to the 80s from when it was shell rock.
Oh, wow. Yeah, actually during Swamp Cabbage, the track surprised me. It got a cushion. I'd never seen a cushion down there before.
It was there again last night for the sprint cars. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It was pretty good.
Well, that kind of answered my next question on if you'd ever considered changing the surface. But have you ever thought about adding banking or anything to it, changing the configuration at all? Or I like it the way it is, a tight little bull ring, real racy racetrack. But have you ever had any thoughts of changing it?
No, that's a great question. I think it's a phenomenal question, but I'm going to tell you again, most of us have heard of Kenny Schrader. Of course, I'm an old timer, so I heard him a little better, but I think anybody that's been around racing knows Kenny Schrader. Well, I think few people know Ivan and Lloyd, and
I've lost a lot of races. I'm
going to talk to you about Ivan a little bit. Me and Ivan, when Bubba put a lot of banking in BRP when he first got it, or Ocala Speedway again now, we were standing up there, and I said, man, he's got some banking. This thing's fast. And Ivan looked at me, and he said he wrecked it. He ruined it. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, Kenny, when you got a place that's tight like this, the more banking you make with this material in Florida, the more perfect the groove is for one guy. And only one guy can get in on that perfect groove. And you can't race side by side anymore because only one guy can run on that groove. And he said, the more banking you add, the faster that lane is, and the less choices you have for passing. So his opinion was the more banking you added to that type racetrack, the harder it was to deal with. And then Schrader pretty much told me the same thing. He said, unless you're absolutely perfect with progressive banking, absolutely perfect, he said, you're better off to be more flat going in the corners because it causes the guy on the outside or the guy going to the bottom, he's got to slow down, and he said that, it makes two groove racing better. So maybe out of state in certain areas like Bulls Gap or different places it works, but it was both of these guys' opinion that the flatter it was in the corners, the more it would make them slow down to make side-by-side racing. And I hadn't thought about it that way either. I thought about banking's better. Banking's great. But honestly, that was their opinion. And I kind of went with what Schrader and Ivan thought. And what they said kind of made sense a little bit too, because we've seen it where we've put banking a little bit more in it and it gets faster and it does get a little more one lane going in then.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a great explanation. Two very smart guys so we know you've always got some kind of renovations going on. You've added the Turn 5 bar, and I believe you're working on some more bathrooms, but is there any more renovation plans that you've got going on that maybe we don't know about yet?
Yes, sir. We bought the metal to put up a new fence to make a taller fence. Our fence, is one of the safer fences in Florida, but cars get faster. We've got good cable in our fence, but if you've noticed in certain areas, especially down there where no people are in turn 3, going into 3, the wall appears that it's not real tall. And that again is back to what you said about banking. We've brought more material in over the years than what we've lost, believe it or not. I know that a lot of racetracks don't, but we brought in hundreds and hundreds of loads when it was right down the street. We're buying that stuff for $30, $40 a load back then. And I remember my daughter, Brittany, and Jamie, my girl, they were literally standing there and it was above their head. That's how deep that bottom used to be down in where the lake was, where it's no more. It was literally 5-6 feet of material. So by the time you got to the top, it cut the wall down in size. So when they start talking about having a World of Outlaw race or Lucas Oil race or something like that, we feel like we've got to raise the wall, put in a taller catch fence. So we've bought the material to do that eventually. And, things are not going to happen as quick as some people would like, or we could do it next year. but we were in talks of having the World of Outlaws come in there to do a test session down here and bring 6 or 7, 8 cars in and run the cars around and see how it races. And we were talking about possibly putting on a race in would be 2027, not 2026. And that's some of the renovations. And the other thing is we're in negotiations right now to buy another 5 acres to the west of the racetrack. To put a little more pits in and also a lot more fan parking, because a lot of thoughts goes into putting in a big race or a big event where we have the capabilities of doing that. And if we do that, we're going to put in another fan ticket booth where the fans can come from the west as well as the east to have 2 different lines, so you have some good questions there, and these are, kind of what we're looking at. So you don't see nothing going on right now, but there's a lot of talks behind the scenes right now of buying this stuff as we speak.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I know if you hadn't rented out that little bit extra pits for the swamp cabbage, it would have been real tight and with all the cars that we had there. So, yeah, that would be awesome. And
Man,
World
it
of
was
Outlaws
pretty
race, that would
phenomenal.
be insane.
Josh, it was
I
pretty
would,
phenomenal though, wasn't it? I mean, there was of course the track gave up after the street stock race, but up to that point that weekend, man, it reminded me of Woodstock or Mardi Gras, I mean, it was unreal when you went through the pits. It didn't even look like the same place. It was so many people there.
Yeah, there was a lot of
Pretty
race
awesome.
cars per square feet for sure.
how do you get them races like that and you get the car count, dude? What does it take to put a big race like that on? I mean, you put some money up that I haven't seen in forever.
I'm not bragging by any means, and I don't know how racing will remember me. I have no idea. But if you have any pride in what you do, whether it be a podcast, whether it be running a racetrack, having a softball team, coaching, whatever you might do, you want to leave some type of legacy for people, of yourself. And, you know, I've always wanted to up the ante and bring the money to the racers. And if you remember right, before I had the United Dirt Late Model Challenge Series, you were either a East Bay guy, you were a Volusia guy, you weren't a Florida racer. I mean, you literally
Hmm.
was labeled of a guy of that area. And other than a few guys that would travel, the majority of the guys would just stay home. And, I felt like we brought a lot of money races to Florida in the late models. And then, when Dickie Murphy, back when he had the 100-lap races for 10,000, that had been gone for a decade. So when I called out the first race to have a 10,000 win race, that was the goal. Now you've got All Tech puts them on, and I'm sure Candace and them are not scared to do it there. And you got a lot of people put big money races on up into South Georgia, even I feel because of what we did. And I felt like we brought some money races back to the racers. And I've taken some risks that I don't think other people would have taken back then. And, I hope to think that I brought more money back to the racers. There's never going to be enough for short track racers. Never going to be for the owners, never going to be for the racers. But I hope that I help bring back some money to the racers and also to, get some people's attention. And I think we've done that through the years.
Heck yeah.
So I know it's a little far from you, but when East Bay was closing down, having their auction, did you ever think about or try to purchase the racetrack? Personally, I think it would have been awesome if you'd have bought the racetrack. I think that place would be packed out every weekend if you owned it. But did that ever cross your mind to do that or purchase anything, any equipment, anything from the racetrack?
I'm going to tell you something that's going to really blow your mind, but it's truth. I showed up at BRP to buy Bubba Raceway Park when it was Ocala Speedway.
Wow.
This is fact. There was no rumor. This is before East Bay. I showed up there with a check in hand with a group of guys that all of them. And Bubba was actually part of that group. Keith Nosbish was another one, if you could believe it. And there was a good group of guys. Oh, yeah, this is fact. These are not rumors. I went to the Ocala airport and I picked these guys up. And there was a group of us that was going to go in there and lease the racetrack. We were going to rent it. It wasn't going to buy it at the time. We were going to lease it. And we had a 1-year lease in our hands. And then some conversations were had between, we'll call it Bubba's guys at that particular time, you know, maybe Tom Bean. It's been a long time ago, as you know. I mean, it's been, you know, out of Mike Peters' hands and Angie's for a while. But I was there with the United race, and as it turned out, Bubba's investment group offered to buy it, and I didn't have the ability to buy it at that time. I had the ability to lease it with the group, but not buy it. And so that was the first time I thought about buying another racetrack, because then they were racing on Friday night, and I thought it would work out pretty good. They'd run Friday and we'd run Saturday here. Then as far as East Bay goes, I never considered that. I've had a lot of people that I thought were very, you know, I appreciate them, and it was very flattering that they said that they thought I could do a good job there. I really, it meant a lot to me. You know, again, I felt the racing world was very kind to me in Florida. So, but there was never any serious talks about it. I mean, there was talks of Wayne Hammond, Jeff Matthews, different names over the years, either buying it or taking the track over, and different people did come to me and ask if I'd have an interest of running it if they took it. And at that particular time, you know, I had 2 young kids at home. I had a daughter who was just, you know, out of school. I don't know if they would have got all of me, because what allows me to run my business, which is the way I pay for a racetrack, is I'm 25 minutes away. And if I'd have been 2 hours away, I'm not sure if they'd have got the best of me, and I'm not sure it'd have worked out. Do I feel I could have went in there and packed that place? You know, I mean, common sense. We have 25, 30,000 people in our county. At that time, there was 1.3 million in Hillsborough County when I checked the geographics, and that's quite some time ago. So do I think that at some point I could have put a lot of people in the seats? I believe so. You know, no knock on anybody that's ever had the racetrack. I mean, I go back, people don't realize it. They would have no idea. But I go back all the way to the years when Will Cagle was a promoter at East Bay. I mean, I know a lot about racing that folks don't know, because I don't sit there and, you know, brag about it. But I've been going to the racetrack since I was in a baby carriage, and watched Buzzy Ruderman win the Eastern States 200 at Middletown in 1973 before I moved to Florida. So I've been around racing a long time, you know. And but back to your original question, there was never any serious talks about it. It was too far gone. I reached out to Wayne Hammond, and I asked him, I said, why don't you try to save this place? And he said, I think it's too late for anybody to try to save it. And that was the exact text I got back. Still got it on my phone today.
Wow.
And, you know, so that's as far as the seriousness got there.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I think East Bay needed somebody that's not afraid to spend money and put some advertisement out there. And I think you are, you know, you spare no change when it comes to putting money into the races, and you advertise like crazy. So I think you absolutely would have made that place a hit every weekend. But unfortunate.
Again, I feel flattered that you say that, and I appreciate that a lot, man. And I appreciate all you drivers. I mean, believe it or not, the shock of losing this little racetrack down here from when I was a kid to when it shut down was a big deal for us. So I can't even envision the shock of East Bay and all the years of history of it being gone. I think that shock is just now hitting this year. I think that shock's going to go on for the next decade, you know. And I'll be honest, I coach baseball for the last 38 years, or football, basketball, different sports. My son's graduating right now and going to go on to play college baseball. And I'll pour a lot more time into the racetrack, and a lot more get back to some of the things I did when I first got it. I'm looking forward to it, to be honest with you, to see how far I can take it. And people hate social media sometimes. I mean, we're here talking on it, but some people complain about it. You'll see me occasionally, believe it or not, I'll put a controversial post out there, or I'll put out a post to draw attention. I do that on purpose. And somebody will call me and say, man, why'd you do that? You're going to cause a show, man. People are going to get on here and say all kinds of stuff. Believe it or not, I do it because I want to hear what they got to say, the good and the bad, because a lot of good people come out on those posts too and say a lot of good things, and they bring a lot of good ideas out. And if you can't take the bad, you don't need to be a promoter in the racing. You can't have, thin skin all the time. If you've got thin skin, you got to go find something else to do, the way I see it. And, so I put some posts out there, and a lot of times I'm fishing for a big race again, or like when we did the Sugar Bowl, Josh, we did a 5,000 win mod light race. Who would have dreamed, right? And everybody else is running late models and sprint cars, and we're running mod lights, motorcycle engines. And the next thing you know, that took off in Florida, right? And, then look at the 4.6 Fords. They thought we were crazy. We were the ones that started the 4.6 Fords on dirt in Florida. If you remember, you think back, we had 5-6 cars. Next thing you know, man, there's people going to have 100,000 win race in Florida for 4.6 Fords. So we like to think of ourselves as a group as innovators to try to make things happen other places. And they'll tell me, man, they copied you. I said, no, they didn't. I said, they did exactly what I'd hope they do, because they have a better geographic area sometime. And, we want that for the racers. We want to see those things. It makes memories for you, me, all of us, So.
Now that you bring that up, I do remember the first time I saw the Crown Vics at East Bay. I said, oh, hey, that's that new class Hendry's trying out. So I do remember that you started that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't my idea. It started out with a little social media deal. Believe it or not, I'm going to tell you who started the Crown Vics in Florida. I'll get some credit for it, but I'm going to tell you who actually started it. A demolition derby guy by the name of Justin Teston came to me and said, hey, man, I seen these in Indiana. I think it would be awesome. Be cool. And we started it, and we couldn't get more than 5 or 6 of them. And I think we had 29 there last night. And, so it's kind of worked out good for everybody, but Justin Teston's a name that he actually helped invent the 4.6 Fords in Florida at our racetrack. So this is how things evolve,
Yeah, that class is certainly blown up for sure. So I know as the owner, you're probably not supposed to be biased, but is there a favorite class you have that you like to watch?
Oh man, you're asking a guy that started the United Dirt Late Model Challenge Series what class he likes to watch the most.
There you go.
I've got to be honest, man. I like a class with a big car count. So from night to night, that varies. I mean, the street stocks, when you guys were there last, when there was 16, 17 of them there on a regular Saturday night, I looked up pretty proud. I enjoyed that when I saw probably 10, 11 guys could have won that night. So I do enjoy that. The late models at Swamp Cabbage, when they could rip the lip up top, I thought you'd never see that at Hendry. So, man, that was pretty awesome. So I think it depends on the night. I really don't have a favorite. I mean, I guess if I was going out of town to go somewhere big, I'd probably go watch a big late model show like a lot of people. But man, the factory stocks, when you get 60, 70 cars, how can you not like that?
Oh, yeah.
Or sprint car guys that put it on the line. I mean, them guys are amazing, so, I guess I'm getting old. I don't have a favorite no more. I like the class that's got the most cars. If they got a lot of cars, I like watching them,
That is a very smart answer.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Pretty much the truth though, man. We had double digits last night in all the classes. And I mean, I was pretty tired because I'd got home from senior night about midnight the night before, had to get up at 3:30 and drive to Orlando. So I got about 3 hours sleep, 3.5 hours. And so last night when I got to track, I was pretty tired. I only rode around the pits one time. I got to give Jamie and, my girl the credit last night for running that place because she ran it. And I went and sat in the grandstands with the fans and I enjoyed it. But I was pretty proud when I saw double-digit cars in every class. A lot of cars. It was great.
All right. Well, can you tell us about maybe some favorite memories or moments that you've had at the racetrack where you just kind of look around and go, you're happy to be here, and you're like, you can't believe that it's happening right in front of you. A favorite moment of yours?
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. And I'm going to be honest, Josh, that's a pretty awesome question, man, from a savvy guy here. That there's been a lot of times I felt that way in Clewiston. I'm not going to kid you. Believe it or not, on the USCS race this year, I was bringing people in on golf carts, and people were trying to tip me. They were literally handing me $3-4 to carry them in on a golf cart, and I wouldn't take their money, but I also wouldn't tell them I was the owner either. So believe it or not, I could hear the cars practicing, and I was bringing people in on golf carts. And as soon as they turned down both sides of US 27, I was pretty proud. And, for helping make that happen, that was my dream, to make the place thrive. And then Swamp Cabbage, what can I say? I already told you, man, the place was so packed. It looked, even though we had some challenges, we're building roads on property that we leased the day of the race. I mean, the first day there, and it's going to get better too when we own that property. But, that was a night when Tony Stewart was there. I mean, who would have dreamed if somebody would have told you in the early 2000s when we had baseball, Clay, that Tony Stewart was going to be ripping laps around Clewiston, and we would have standing room only on a Friday night where you couldn't fit another person in there. That was another oh wow moment that I was proud to be part of that. Back to the day of man, I can remember leasing the racetrack and having so many cars. That's not the most cars that have ever been there, what you saw. I've had so many race cars there that they were all the way down going 227 race cars. I'm talking about the race cars. I don't know if you were around, Josh. I had that Winter Nationals race when I first got it. You might have been too young.
Yeah,
I had so many cars. Yeah, they were pitting. I remember Sean Smith showing up from Tennessee and unloading on the Shell Rock Road to go in there and driving down the road to get in staging to go on the track on a Sunday because we got rained out that Saturday night. And so, yeah, there's been some oh wow moments there for sure.
All right. So now, have there ever been any moments where you've been kind of the flip side? You've been real nervous, like maybe you tried something and hoping it works out, or any time that made you real nervous as an owner?
Nervous. The same night, the same weekend I'm talking about, we had 300 cars there. We rained out. There was a foot of water. It was up to my knees. And the late, great Mr. Prather took the grader and pushed the whole racetrack into the infield, and we're racing on hard bottom. And, so that weekend, I thought we wrecked the racetrack again. That was one weekend that made me nervous for good reason. And the other time was when this past February, when we put $100 and something thousand on the line. I was wondering if I wrote a check I could cash. That made me nervous. And, to be honest though, I mean, it was probably the second most money we've ever brought into the racetrack, that stayed with the racetrack. There's only been 3 or 4 nights ever that we've, really made any consequential money to leave in the racetrack. We've never made money to take out of it, but the Tony Stewart night, the Swamp Cabbage night, the USCS night, it proved to me what other owners have told y'all, that during speed weeks they could run the racetrack and then shut it down, that those were the nights that I believe there's a little truth to that if you do it right. I have no interest in that. I have an interest in running a racetrack that on Saturday night people got somewhere to go to race. I enjoy that. But I see some truth in what different promoters have told you guys and me through the years. But nervous, that's an understatement. In February, I was pretty nervous.
All right. Yeah, so that kind of answers my next question about these big events. You put a lot of money on the line, and I was kind of wondering if that ever gets you worried, or have you gotten kind of used to it anymore at this point?
I don't know. I guess if you're a rodeo guy and you ride a bull, I guess you get used to getting knocked on the ground. But I'm sure they get nervous every time they get in that chute. So I get nervous every time we get on that on social media and we start those long threads with a couple hundred texts on there about big money. I get nervous when we do that still. So I guess that feeling is not going to go away, but
Yeah. So
a lot of fun to it though.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about putting on these big events. Has there ever been a moment where it was like a make or break kind of weekend where if nobody shows up, we close the doors on the racetrack, or has it always been pretty well calculated, planned out, and it's either going to be break even or profit? How has that worked out for you?
Well, think about it. I have a 10,000 win race right before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, with 3 kids at home and a girlfriend at the time. Me and Jamie first got together. So yeah, you get nervous, man. I'm spending my Christmas money and then other money that I don't need to be spending. And if nobody shows up, this is going to be bad. And we've always been blessed that people showed up. So again, I thank God for those days. And but I do see there's been a few times I got really nervous. I don't think I've ever been nervous enough to where we'd have to shut the racetrack down for good. But I've been nervous to where we might have to start the season a couple weeks later, but that kind of deal.
I can say I started to get nervous for you before Swamp Cabbage because I had only heard of about 20 or so street stocks, and then all of a sudden we get there on Friday night and there's 47 of us in the pits. I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad that worked out for him because I didn't think this many cars would be here.
That street stock race was phenomenal too. That was probably one of the best races in Florida this year as far as for street stocks. I mean, the track went away after that. I mean, honestly it did, but that street stock race, I got to watch that up close from the infield, and it was pretty phenomenal. And I appreciate all of you that did come. That was a pretty phenomenal show. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't real nervous about this, the car count for this one, but me as a promoter, if you ever want to know what I think the car count's going to be like, call me the week of, because everybody, you got the group that calls you early and you know who they are, and then you got the late calls, and I had a lot of early calls and a lot of late calls, so I knew we were going to be pretty good.
All right, sounds good. Now you made a post either last week or the week before, and I'm wondering if you can tell us any more about this $60,000 race you were talking about.
Well, they upped the ante. I mean, I think Rob and Jason was having a few over somewhere at a pub somewhere, and they were upping the ante on me. I was talking 30 and they doubled it to 60. So I started scratching my head, and I even texted them back. I said, y'all making me a little nervous here with this 60 business. To be honest with you, you need a couple egos to step up to do something like that, which I've been fortunate to do over the years. That deal, because I'll tell you what's reality and what's fiction. That 60 right now is fiction until we got some guys that step up with an ego that'll help us out. Because that one there is a little much. Plus, I don't want to have a racetrack that we got to race on single groove because we got to have so many cars there to pay for it that the racing sucks. So, that one might be fiction right now, the 60. But I'm not scared. You never know. I mean, I get me a few ego guys, and we might do some things a little above what we've been doing with the $100,000 weekends. We might eventually get to one of those $60,000 weekends, but it's not going to happen in 2025.
All right. So what are the talks of, with these big events, there's a lot of people that like front loading the field where if you win, it's a big purse, but then a lot of guys like the more pay throughout the field. So how does that seem to work out from a track owner side? Does the big money at the top seem to get more cars, or what's the thought process behind all that?
Okay, you've truthfully, for a real big one, you got to do both. To be down here, you got to do both, because the big guys from far away are not going to come if it's just loaded at the back. But you have to, like I'll use the Mod Lights as an example. When we did the 5,000 win 500 to start, that was a well balanced pay throughout the field. Because 500 to start for a street stock or a Mod Light or a factory stock, that's respectable to pay to get here, to pay your entry fee, and it's not so bad on you. So I 100% realize that the back end money's got to be better to put on these big shows. I as a former racer, I wasn't a front guy. I mean, I was a guy that could win some heat races here and there. won a couple features on a Saturday night, but I wasn't that frontline guy that was going to race for that 5,000 or 10,000 win race. So I recognize that you've got to load the payoff better further back. So that's a given. But to get people's attention the way I have with a 10,000 win race or a 22,000 win race, something like that, I think to get people to come this far, you've got to do a little bit of both. And the same thing with a fan. If you put out there that's 20 plus to win for a fan that comes once in a blue moon, he don't know what the payoff is further back. So it's a balancing act. And to be honest with you, rather than a 60,000 win race, I would like a more balanced next year, because I'm going to be honest, I think that's how we're going to get the cars back for that event next year, is to have more balance in the payoff, to offer more to the guys in the field further back. I mean, if you took the top payoff away, our payoff was still pretty good, for the most part versus others, but it does make it look pretty bad if it says 22,000 to start, or 22,000 win, 300 to start. So I do understand the mathematics for everybody involved, and it's a little bit of both. I think there's got to be a balance there to make it turn out perfect. You got to find that sweet spot, man. Just like the water on the track, you got to find that balance.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you have any more big events in the works, something new? Like, we know you started the Swamp Cabbage not long ago, and it's been a huge success. Is there anything else you're coming up with that? I know that brain of yours never stops.
I appreciate that. I do. We're gonna add a modified race. We had that modified race this year, and we only drew I don't know, maybe 15 cars for that 3,000 win race that we did, or 2,000 win. We're going to turn that into a 5,000 win Saturday night race and a Friday night for a pretty decent payoff. So we're going to put a 3-day modified event on that weekend, which will be during speed weeks. We're definitely going to do that. We'll come back with the USCS again. I'm not sure that although I loved it, I absolutely loved the USCS Top Gun event. I'm not sure that those sanctioning bodies could get along good enough to do that again. I'm not sure. But that's one we want to come back with, would be that big sprint car event with the mod lights. And then, of course, Swamp Cabbage is tradition now. We got to do that. But I'd say we're going to add that modified event, would be the big one we're going to add next year with some other classes. Beyond that, I want to be practical, because sometimes I think too much is too much, and I want to have things that people look forward to. And I'm going to kind of weigh how things go this year, not only for me, but the racing world at other places. And, to be honest with you, Josh, I'd rather watch you guys run that Swamp Cabbage race. I know this is going to sound hard, or that I don't mean it, but it's fact. I'd rather see that event with all the local people in Florida, and I mean all of Florida, even South Georgia, all the guys that I get to see come down. I'd rather run that event than dump that date to run a World of Outlaw race. And I know in y'all's mind, you may not think that's true, but that's an absolute fact. I was a little racer, and I love, they have those races. I can watch Flow Racing, that's behind you, on TV if I want to watch the World of Outlaws. But where can you get everybody together that races in Georgia and Florida to put on a big event where you guys can make memories out there and cook and grill and enjoy your weekend? I'm more about that. So I'm going to add the modified deal and go to 3 weekends next year. But beyond that, we'll have to see how it goes, So.
Yeah, I can say that the Jim Morgan Memorial and the Swamp Cabbage are two of my favorite weekends I look forward to every year.
The Jim Morgan Memorial race means everything to us. And when we added the Cherly Wilson, of course, that's John's mom, and Brian Baggett, Biggs, when we added that, emotionally, that means a lot to all of us, whether we work there, fans, local drivers, it means a lot. And then when you guys embrace it, the guys that came from East Bay, or whether it be Ocala, or you mentioned All-Tech earlier, it means a lot to us when you guys come down here, because the underlying meaning of those races mean a lot to us. And it's going to be our history as this place goes on, as East Bay did. The big races that were only a couple thousand win races, but they meant something to you guys. The Donnie Tanner race, or some of the big names that meant something. The Jim Morgan race and Cherly Wilson Biggs race, those mean a lot to us. And then we added the Montesi race, Craig Montesi. And Craig Sr., I watched him win 11 what you'd have called sportsman races in a row at our racetrack. And he was an outsider, just like the days when you'd see guys from BRP or, say, East Bay come in from the other track and take on all the big dogs at that racetrack. Craig come over from Okeechobee, and he whooped everybody from Clewiston 11 weekends in a row. And, so that means something to the people down here. So I think I'm more about putting those events on than any huge events in 2026. And then we'll look hard at 2027. If we get the track right and the amenities right, then we'll look at some of these other big events. But I never want to forget, where we came from or the people that helped build this thing from scratch. I don't want to ever forget that. And, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. Maybe I'm getting old and that's what means the most to me, but that's where I'm at.
All right. Now, I know you got some good events for the 604 late models, and on a regular night, my boy Brandon here can run good with his 602, but have you ever thought about putting on a big 602 late model event?
We've talked about it. Honestly, I need a little more help. I need some help from up there and some of the guys from Volusia. I'd have no problem. See, I don't have to have, here's the difference between me and others. I don't have to have 30 cars to call it a success. You know what I mean? The math don't work that way, believe it or not. There's a sweet spot there to where if there was 15 of y'all, your boy, and there was 15 guys that I could get together to do a 2,000 win race or 3,000 win race, we could make that happen with the right other classes. It doesn't have to be. So I haven't, gotten overly serious about that, but I'm going to tell you right now that that's not an impossibility. I think if a guy like you that, has got a son involved, and we found a few other dads or car owners that were interested in putting one on, I think we could do that. Could we do a 10,000 win? I don't know. I don't know that there's enough cars because you'd have to import every car from somewhere else to make it work. But could we put on a good big race, that meant something? I think we could,
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Brandon, get on your guys and see if you can get some people rounded up, see if we can get something going.
I'll try my best, brother. Trust me.
I'll be part of it. I mean, I'll look out. I got to apologize too. I mean, I'm on a great podcast here. I think you guys do a fantastic job. I want to, I've got a gentleman that owns in Tampa owns a restaurant equipment place, and he's been contacting me probably in one of the busiest weeks of my life to sponsor the Outlaw Fours, believe it or not, for that series deal. And I've got to get back on that tomorrow. I told him I was going to call him in the morning Friday and got sidetracked by my regular business, how I make a living. But I got to get with him because we've got some things real good cooking for those guys, thanks to him. And we, I think the sponsor follow up, I think when my son goes on to play college ball and I'm not spending 100 hours out at the field, at the high school, I think that I'll put a little more of that time into the local sponsorship and a little more of what you're talking about with the 602s and, some of the other classes. And, I want to get back to that a little bit more,
So here we go in the comments. Tim Swartz says he'd bring his down for 2,000 or 3,000 to win. So we got 2 already.
Yeah.
There you go. We'll make that happen. We'll get out there, and I can tell you, if a guy will put on a 10,000 win race or 20,000 win race, I think he can figure out with you guys how to put on a $2,000 or $3,000 win race. I think we can figure that one out. I'll commit to that deal. We'll figure it out a date and we'll do that. I'm not scared of that one, guys.
And as far as Outlaw Fours, man, it's a class that Brandon and I both love. Brandon won a lot of races in that class. I've only ran one time, but it's a class that we do enjoy and like to see that class make a comeback. So I appreciate you putting some money up for them.
And it was honestly our first class we sponsored as a podcast.
Yeah.
As you know, we started with 5 guys. Now we're down to basically 2. So we would love to sponsor little classes, and that's where I came from, was a little class. street stocks is not a very big class, but it is now. Um, so I love supporting the bang bangers, four cylinders, the little guys because they don't get recognized like they should. Everybody comes to watch late models and they leave. Me, I'd rather watch the bang bangers that have 25 race cars racing in A. That's just me.
Brandon, we honestly, I think the three of us think a lot alike. And I think that's why I've gotten along with Josh since he's come down here. And I think a whole lot like you. Um, I'm the same way, man. I see everybody put their heart and soul into those classes and races, and that kind of stuff means a lot to me too. And I, that's kind of where I want to keep my roots. I may never be a big World of Outlaw guy or a Lucas Oil guy. I may never be that big guy because there's a lot more big guys around the country, a lot bigger than me, that can do that kind of thing. But if I can be remembered for stepping up for the little guy and putting on some cool events, that's kind of, I enjoy that. And that I want that to be my legacy, is that I, help some little guys and enjoyed those nights. If you ever watch me, if I've got things going on good, I walk around a racetrack or drive around a racetrack. I enjoy people not knowing me and walking up and talking to them and thanking them. And it just means a lot to me, because when I raced, if a guy come over and thanked me and I was back marker or mid marker guy, that meant a lot to me and made me want to go back and race for him. And I, so I think the three of us, we probably could do a pretty good show, because I think we think the same way.
Yes, sir.
Well, Brandon, if you got anything else for him, I got one final question, but if there's anything else you'd like to ask him, Brandon.
To be honest, man, I think you do a great job. Great promoter. You definitely, when you say you're gonna put 10 grand, you pay the 10 grand. There's no BS. And I like that about you, straightforward. To me, the street stock class, you have really kept it alive, to be honest. The biggest street stock races to me, I don't race street stocks, but to me is Why Not and a Swamp Cabbage. That to me is the biggest street stocks events, and everybody should be going to both. So I thank you for giving back to the racers, keeping a racetrack alive, and if it wasn't for your love and support, man, a lot of classes would disappear.
Man, I appreciate that. That's, kind words, man. I really, really appreciate you. And like I said, I think we've kind of said it all in the last hour. I think we've done I think it's been a pretty good show. You guys,
Yeah, man.
Josh, you're pretty tough, man. I didn't know you were as good as you are. You're pretty awesome there, man. You missed your calling, man. You're all right behind the wheel, but you're pretty good at this too, man. You could get a higher level job someday, man.
There we go. All righty, man. Well, I appreciate that, but we'll round it up here. Just if you got anybody that you want to thank, I know we've talked about John Wilson. He does an absolute awesome job getting that racetrack in tip-top shape, but anybody else that you maybe don't think gets enough credit, you like to shout them out and thank them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've been on a lot of shows with Billy Howard, and I've talked to different folks, and I've been blessed that a lot of people have reached out to me over the years. And but I want to thank Jamie. It's my long-term girl. She's my better half. She, a lot of people like to thank their better half, say they put up with them, but there's a lot of times she runs that racetrack in the background, and she doesn't do it with an ego. She's pretty quiet, and she puts up with more than anybody. She really does, from me and anybody that's not happy if somebody else makes a mistake. And so if anybody gets around back at the payout shack, man, I want you guys to thank her, because she does a really good job, and sorry about that. I lost you for a second with my non-tech self. But yeah, she does a real good job. And then, we've had some good sponsors in addition to that lately. Clyde Johnson's come in and done an awesome job for us, fighting for Christ. David McCormick, Tire Zone always does a lot for the street stocks. And, so I want to thank the sponsors that have stepped up, and we've had others. I mean, General Elevator Solutions, Joe Askew, there's and I know I'm gonna forget somebody and I'm gonna feel really bad about it, but I appreciate the sponsors that have stepped up over the years, especially lately. And, like I said, my girl Jamie, and then all the rest of my staff. I mean, whether they pick up the garbage or an honesty, when everybody's gone, or they meet you at the gate. I want to thank all my staff because I think I've got a really good group there that appreciates the drivers and the fans. So I want to thank all of them.
Got a comment
You like
from
that
John
comment?
Wilson here. Says you need a few margaritas in you.
Yeah, I know where he's coming from too, man. John's really, he's phenomenal. He's probably my worst critic. He can get on me worse than anybody. And usually he's right. That's the problem. He's usually right. So I can't say much. But as far as the margarita joke, when we get rained out or we don't have a race, we like to go sit at the launch right down the street from my house, or go over to the Rum Bucket, or the bridge, or I can't remember the name of the place, but the boathouse, she hollered. But we go sit and have a couple margaritas, relax, get on there and cause a bunch of social media buzz. And that's where old John's coming from right there. That's where you guys get paid. That's where we get big races. It's from the margarita deal.
That's
Keep
awesome.
drinking them.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, Ken, we appreciate you coming on, man, and look forward to seeing you down there at the Hendry County Motorsports Park.
Man, I appreciate both of you. I think you do a fantastic job, and this podcast is, both of you are pretty awesome. So thank you for having me, and we'll see you down the road for sure, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
What an awesome dude, man. There's no one better than Kinney, dude. No one better.
That was a good hour right there for sure.
I mean, he is, for real, promoter of the year. Promoter of the year, dude. When he says he's going to put money up, he puts money up. When he says he's going to, he does everything he says. And dude, look at all the upgrades he has done to Hendry County. Let's take it back 5 years, dude. Right? Man, that place has gotten so good, dude.
I can tell you the Turn 5 bar has been a huge hit. I've heard from multiple people that we just sit at the bar and drink and watch racing, and it don't get no better than that.
I love it, man. Hopefully we'll do it like in a year. We'll get him back on, see what's going on, what changes. That's awesome, man. That was definitely a good one. Josh, let's go through some sponsors, man. We'll get out of here.
All right, yeah, got to thank Barstow Transportation. He's been helping me a lot with answering some questions and helping me get this new car together. So hopefully here soon you'll see us rolling out with a new street stock. He's been communicating with the builder for me and getting me some answers. So he's been helping me out a lot with that. Got to thank LaRoche Record Service, Fatback Racing Engines, everybody that helps me out, multi-roll, and everybody that puts their hands on this car and help me get it ready for the next race.
So, my thought, bro, I think we should sell what we have and just buy 4.6s.
Honestly, for $100,000 to win, I'm in.
I will drive the shit out of the thing.
If anybody's got a couple cars that needs drivers, we're available.
Correct. Yeah, real quick, RCP America, the family, man, All Gas Pros, Finney's with the shocks, Action Graphics. Who else am I missing? Oh, Ronnie.
There you go.
Hendry for a good motor, man. Just everybody on that race car. Thank you for the continued support over the years. And dude, do you know we're 2 years in on this podcast?
I didn't realize it was already 2 years into it. Yeah,
that's 2 years, man.
That's pretty crazy.
It's amazing.
Cool.
So, anything else, man?
I think that's it, man. Like I said, look for us after the end of the summer break. Hopefully, we'll be back out on the racetrack.
See y'all in a few weeks.
See ya.